I had been on that ridge for 9 years' worth of mornings, and I knew the exact minute the Curzon Valley would give up its color. It came at first light, when the sun cleared the eastern wall and the shadows drained out of the riverbed like water out of a cracked basin. For 3 or 4 minutes the whole valley went the soft rust gold of an old penny, and you could see everything. Every goat track, every dry wash, every collapsed mud compound the war had left behind. Then the light flattened and the heat came up off the rock and the air began to shimmer, and after that you were reading mirage as much as ground. If you wanted the truth of that valley, you took it in those first 4 minutes or you waited until dusk. I am Senior Chief Wade Coyle, and that morning I was running the overwatch element on a knuckle of stone we called Op Antler, 1,100 feet above the valley floor, because the rock at the crest forked like a buck's rack against the sky. We had been there 6 days. We were tired in the particular way you get tired when nothing has happened yet and everything is about to. My job was the high ground and the glass. I had 2 shooters, a spotter, a radio, and a commander, Lieutenant Commander Tom Hale, who I'd served under twice before and trusted the way you trust a man who has carried you down a mountain. Below us, somewhere in the folds of that valley, a recon team of 6 was working its way toward a crossing the map said still existed. Our job was to watch them in and watch them out. Simple work, patient work. The kind that turns deadly in the time it takes to clear your throat. That morning, the only thing wrong with my world was the 7th person on my ridge. She had come in 2 nights before on the resupply bird, stepped off into the rotor wash with a kit bag and a long hard case, and the case was the thing my eye caught first. It was a shooter's case, I'd carried enough of them, but everything else about her said she'd been sent to count beans. The paperwork called her a liaison. Theater asset, attached, observe and advise. We'd all read that line and we'd all heard the same thing under it. She was somebody's idea of oversight, dropped on us to watch and report, and she'd be gone in a week. She was not large. She was lean and unhurried and somewhere north of 30, with the kind of weathered calm you don't see on people who spend their days in tents with laptops. She'd given her name as Marston and not much else. She kept the long case zipped. She slept when she could and ate cold rations without complaint and asked exactly 2 questions in 2 days, both about the wind, and I'd written her off the way you write off whether you've already decided about. I am telling you this plainly because I want you to understand that the man who doubted her hardest was me, and I had 9 years of mornings on that ridge to make me feel entitled to it. "She's still asleep?" Hale asked, low, settling in beside me at the glass. He was a big man, careful with his voice the way good leaders learn to be. The valley was just starting to bleed color. "She's up," I didn't look. "Been up, out on the spur with her own optics since before me." Hale grunted. He didn't like her either, but Hale didn't like anything he hadn't personally vetted, which was most of the world. "You read the tasking on her." "Same as you, observe and advise." I let a little dryness into it. She can observe all she wants. The advising I'll take under consideration. He almost smiled. Almost. Below us the recon team made its first call of the morning, 6 souls, moving, no contact. A clipped transmission that told us the night had passed clean. We both eased a breath we hadn't admitted we were holding. 6 men in a valley that had swallowed better teams than ours. I want to be honest about the shape of my doubt, because the shape of it matters. It wasn't that I thought a woman couldn't do the work. I'd served alongside women who could outshoot and outwalk and outthink me, and I'd buried 2 of them, and I didn't carry any cartoon in my head about who got to be hard. My doubt was narrower and meaner than that. It was the doubt of a man who has earned his ground and resents anyone handed a seat on it. She hadn't walked the 6 days in. She hadn't bled for the crest. She'd flown in on a bird with a clean case and a clipboard's worth of authority, and I had decided, in the petty arithmetic of fatigue, that she was a passenger. The light was going gold now. I put my eye back to the spotting scope and started my sweep, left wall, riverbed, the broken compounds, the goat tracks climbing the far slope, reading the valley the way I'd read it 100 mornings, and finding it as I'd found it 100 mornings, empty and patient in hours. That was the morning I learned what I didn't know. She came across the rock without a sound. I didn't hear her until she was already settling in a few feet off my shoulder, on her belly, glass up, not crowding me, not announcing herself, just there, the way a good shooter takes a position. She'd brought her own spotting scope. She laid it on the same valley I'd already cleared. "Morning, Senior Chief," she said, quiet, even. "Marston," I kept my eye in the glass. "Anything I can do for theater oversight this fine morning?" If the dig landed, she didn't show it. She just kept looking. The gold light was draining fast now, the shadows thinning out, the valley flattening toward its long, hot day. "That far wash," she said. "The dogleg one climbs the east slope past the broken tower. You sweep it." I sweep everything, which was true and also the kind of thing a man says when he's already losing an argument he doesn't know he's in. "It's empty. Been empty 6 days." "It's empty," she agreed. And then, the same flat, even voice. "But there's a man behind the tower base who's been counting our recon team across the riverbed for the last 9 minutes. He hasn't moved because he doesn't need to. He's waiting for them to commit to the crossing." I looked. I want to tell you I saw him right away. I didn't. I looked at the broken tower, a crumbled stub of mud brick maybe 1,900 meters out, the kind of ruin the valley had 100 of, and I saw rock and shadow and the shimmer already starting to lie to me, and I saw nothing. I held on it for a 10 count. Still nothing. "There's nothing at the tower," I said. "Base of it, north side, in the shadow line, low, prone." Her voice never changed. "He's got an optic. The flash off it caught the gold a minute ago, which is the only reason I have him at all. He'll go invisible the second this light flattens. You've got maybe 90 seconds to confirm before the valley takes him back." Hale had gone still beside me. He'd heard all of it. I pushed my eye into the scope until the rubber bit my socket. I found the shadow line at the tower base. I held. The light was almost gone now, the rust gold thinning to the hard white that lies to you all day, and right at the edge of it, just before the shadow swallowed the spot, I saw it. Not a man. A wrongness. A line that was too straight in a place that had no straight lines. The dull, dark length of an optic sunshade, laid flat, pointed at the riverbed where 6 of our men were about to commit to a crossing. Then the light flattened, and the valley took him back, exactly as she'd said it would. "Contact," I said, and I heard my own voice change. "1, tower base, north shadow. He's glassing the recon route." Hale was already on the radio, low and fast, pushing the warning down to the team below, telling them to hold short of the crossing, hold and do not commit. I heard the recon lead acknowledge. I heard the 6 men in the valley stop, moving toward the thing that had been waiting to kill them. And in the loud quiet after, I turned my head a few inches and looked at the woman beside me, the liaison, the passenger, theater oversight with a clean case, looking at her for the first time as a person instead of a verdict. She hadn't moved. She was still on her glass, still reading the valley, already past the small matter of having seen what 4 trained men had missed. "You've got a good eye," I said. It cost me something to say it, and we both knew it. "I've got a slow one," she said. "I look until the valley tells me. Most people quit looking the second it tells them what they expected." I had quit looking. 6 mornings, I had quit looking the second the valley told me empty. She'd looked 9 minutes past that into a shadow at 1,900 meters and pulled a man out of it by the flash off his own glass. I didn't say anything else for a while. Below us, the recon team held its position in the cover of a dry wash, and the man at the tower base waited for a crossing that didn't come, and the day's heat began to climb the rock toward us. Hale lowered the radio and looked at her too. And I watched something work behind his eyes, not respect, not yet, but the first small crack in a certainty. "You called that off a flash," he said. "It wasn't quite a question." "I called it off a flash in 9 minutes of him not being where a goat or a farmer would be." She finally lifted her eye from the glass and looked at the two of us, and her face was calm in a way that wasn't soft at all. Your recon team is walking into a valley that's holding more than one man. That tower spotter is an anchor. He's the eyes. Somewhere behind him there's a gun, or there's an element, and they set this up to let your people walk most of the way across before anything happened. Patient work. Whoever planned it is good. You got all that from a flash, I said. I got the shape of it from a flash. She went back to her glass. I'll get the rest from watching, that's the job. Hale held on her a moment longer, then keyed the radio again and started the slow, careful work of pulling 6 men back out of a trap they hadn't sprung yet. And I lay there on the rock I'd owned for 9 years' worth of mornings and understood, with the particular sting of a man who's been wrong on his own ground, that the passenger had been the only one in the truck actually watching the road. The day got hot. The valley did what valleys do, which is mostly nothing slowly, while everything that matters arranges itself out of sight. We watched the tower. The spotter never showed himself again. She'd been right about that too. The flattened light hid him as completely as a closed door. But now we knew the door was there, and that changes a man's whole posture toward a room. Around midday, Hale called a quiet council at the back of the op, in the shade of the rock fork. All of us crouched low. The recon team was holed up in the dry wash, safe for now, but they had a crossing to make and a clock that didn't care about safe. Their window to reach the far objective and get back to extraction was closing, hour by hour. If they sat in that wash too long, the window shut, and then they had to walk back out the way they'd come, through a valley that now knew they were in it. We can't move them across with that anchor sitting on the tower, Hale said, and we can't see what's behind him. Senior Chief. Tower's 1900 to me, I said. I can range it. I can't shoot it clean, not through this mirage, not at that distance, not at a target I can't even confirm without a flash. If I put rounds on that shadow and I'm wrong, I've announced our whole position for nothing and I've still got 6 men pinned. It was the truth, and it was bitter to say, because the next thing was obvious and I didn't want it to be. Marston spoke without being asked, the same even voice. He's not the problem anyway. We all looked at her. The anchor on the tower is bait you can see, she said. You kill him, you've told everyone behind him exactly where the shot came from, and you still haven't solved the crossing, because whatever he's anchoring is still out there and now it's awake. She nodded down valley, past the tower, to the long bend where the riverbed swung north toward the far wall and the ground broke into a tumble of boulders and shadow. If I were running their side, my gun's down there, in that boulder field. It covers the crossing and it covers the tower both. The anchor watches, the gun kills. Your recon team commits to the crossing, the anchor calls it. The gun opens up from the boulders with the whole crossing zeroed, and 6 men die in the open water in about 40 seconds. The shade was very quiet. And that boulder field, I said slowly, because I'd already done the math and I hated it, is past 3,000 meters from this op. 3,200 and change to the near edge, she said, like she'd ranged it in her sleep, and maybe she had. More to the back of it. Hale looked at her for a long moment. And you can see a gun in there that none of us can see. Not yet, she said, but I will, same as the tower. I'll watch until the valley tells me. She paused. And when it tells me when your recon team has to cross and that gun has to commit to kill them, I'll be the only angle on this ridge that can reach it before it finishes. That was the moment the whole thing turned, though none of us said so out loud. Because what she just laid on the rock between us was a claim no one on that op could make. A shot past 3,000 meters, through midday mirage, into a target hidden in broken ground, to save 6 men in open water, and she'd said it the way you'd say you could change a tire. I watched Hale's face do the thing I'd felt my own face do that morning. The narrow, mean arithmetic of a tired man who's earned his ground and resents the stranger on it. Theater oversight, the liaison, a clean case off the resupply bird, and I watched him decide, the way I had not yet fully decided, that he didn't believe her. That's a 3,000-meter shot you're describing, Hale said, and there was an edge under the quiet now. On a target you can't confirm. To cover a crossing you want me to send 6 men into on your say-so. Yes, she said. On your say-so. He let it sit. I don't know you, I know your paperwork. Your paperwork says you advise. It does, she agreed, and she didn't reach for anything else, no record, no resume, no name behind the name. She just held his eyes, calm as the rock. So advise is what I'm doing. My advice is that you do not move those men until I have the gun, and that when you move them, you let me cover the crossing from here. You can take the advice or you can leave it. But if you send them across on your own glass, against a gun you can't see, in ground I'm telling you it's sitting in, you'll be reading 6 names off a manifest tonight. I have been in a lot of hard rooms in my life, and I have rarely heard anything land the way that landed. Not loud, not a threat, just a flat true sentence laid down by someone who clearly was not guessing. Hale didn't answer her. He looked down valley at the boulder field she'd pointed to, 3,000 meters of heat shimmer and broken stone, holding, maybe, a gun, or holding nothing, and no way for any of us to know which but the word of a stranger. Then he looked at me. Senior Chief, he said quietly, get on the long gun. I want eyes on that boulder field, and I want you to tell me, honest, is there any version of this where she's right and we're blind? I got on the long gun. I put my eye to the big optic and laid it on the boulder field, and the first honest thing I have to tell you is that I saw nothing, and the second honest thing is that nothing was no longer the same as nothing. 3,000 meters of valley lay between Op Antler and that tumble of stone, and at midday the air over it boiled. The mirage came up off the rock in slow vertical waves, and through the glass the whole boulder field swam and shifted like something seen through water, the shadows breathing, the edges of every rock smearing and reforming. You could stare into that and convince yourself of anything. A man, a goat, a gun, nothing. The valley would show you whatever your tired mind brought to it. That was the trap, and I'd been falling into it for 6 days, and only that morning had I learned I was falling. Talk me through what you're doing, I said low, not taking my eye off the glass. I'd never asked a stranger to teach me my own job before. It tasted strange. I asked anyway. She didn't gloat about being asked. She just answered, even and unhurried. I'm not looking for a gun, she said. You can't see a gun in that. The mirage eats it. I'm looking for the things a gun makes a man do. A pause while she swept. I'm looking for one rock that's darker at the base than the sun angle says it should be. That's a man lying in shadow he chose, not shadow the sun made. I'm looking for a line of stones that's a little too even, because men build a rest and they don't think about how straight it reads from above. I'm looking for the one boulder in that whole field where nothing crawls, no lizard, no bird lands, no heat bug works the surface, because something's been lying still against it long enough to keep the small life away. I'm looking for disturbed ground at the back of the field, a drag mark, a scuff, where they moved up in the dark and didn't have time to brush it out before light. I listened to that the way a younger man listens to an older one, and realizes the gap between them is not years, but a whole different way of seeing. And mostly, she said, I'm just looking longer than is comfortable. The valley shows you empty in the first 10 seconds because empty is the easy read. It tells you the truth somewhere around minute 9, when you've stopped wanting it to be one thing. Most shooters never get to minute 9. They confirm the easy read and move their eye. Because holding one patch of ground that long in this heat makes your eye water and your mind itch, and every instinct you have says nothing's there, move on. She breathed out slow. The instinct is the enemy. You hold past it. I held past it. It is a strange and humbling thing, to lie on rock you've owned for 9 years and feel a stranger teach your own eye to see. The minutes stacked up. My eye watered. The mirage breathed. My mind itched with the urge to sweep off that patch of boulders and rest on something easier. I held. Sweat ran into my eye and I blinked it clear and held. The boulder field swam and reformed and showed me nothing, nothing, nothing. Back third, she said softly, left of the big flat-topped rock. There's a low boulder with a darker base. Watch the ground in front of it. Don't watch the rock. Watch the dirt a meter in front of the rock on the downslope side. I moved my eye where she sent it. I watched the dirt. For a long time it was just dirt, swimming in the heat. And then small, so small I'd have called it mirage any other day, the dirt moved. A little puff. A displacement, like a breath of dust pushed out from under something. The kind of thing a man makes when he shifts his weight a few inches on his elbows after lying too long in one place, and his boot or his knee disturbs the ground behind his firing position. There, I breathed. There, she agreed. That's your gun, he just adjusted. He's been in that hide since before dawn and his body's starting to complain, which is good. It means he's human and he's getting stiff and he'll have to move again. Each time he moves, he tells me a little more, a beat. He's laid in on the crossing. The flat rock is his rest. The tower anchor is his eyes. They're a pair. The anchor calls your men across, the gun finishes them. Exactly the shape I gave you this morning. I keyed the radio and gave Hale the grid, my voice steadier than I felt. Confirmed. Gun in the boulder field, back third off a flat-topped rock. Ranged at, I lazed it, watched the number come up and felt the bottom drop out of my stomach a little. 3,247 meters to the hide. Through this mirage. Sir, I can't make that shot. That's not my gun and not my distance. Past about 2,000 I'm a prayer, not a marksman. There was a silence on the net. Understood, Hale said finally. And then, after a pause, I will remember the rest of my life. Marston, can you make it? She was quiet for a moment. Not the quiet of doubt, I understood later, but the quiet of a professional actually doing the math instead of bragging about it. From this position, that target, this air, she said. Yes, but not at noon. The mirage is too heavy now. The shot's a coin flip and I don't flip coins with men's lives. I need the light to start coming down late afternoon when the heat comes off and the air settles and the mirage lies down. Give me the back half of the afternoon and I'll have a window where the air's honest for maybe 40 minutes. A pause. Your recon team crosses in that window, not before. The gun commits to kill them, and that's when I take it, when it's looking at the water and not at me. You want me to send 6 men across open water, Hale said slowly, as the bait to make a gun show itself, so you can shoot it at 3,200 meters on the one shot you get. I want you to send 6 men across in the only window where I can guarantee I beat the gun to the trigger, she said. The gun is already there. The crossing already has to happen. The only variable I'm adding is when, and the one I'm choosing is the one where your men live. Even now, even saying that, her voice never climbed. If you send them at noon to get it over with, I miss and they die. If you wait for my window, I don't miss and they live. That's the whole decision. I lay there and listened to a stranger calmly volunteer to be the single thread 6 lives hung from, and I thought about the morning, and the flash off the tower, and minute 9, and how she'd pulled a man out of a shadow that 4 of us had cleared. And I made a decision of my own, quietly, on the rock. A decision I had no rank to make and made anyway, in my heart. Sir, I said into the radio, she was right this morning when all of us were wrong. I'd take her window. Another silence. Then Hale, low and even, we take her window. Coyle, you spot for her. Marston, the crossing is yours to call. Tell me what you need. What she needed, it turned out, was time and stillness, and a kind of attention I had never in my life sustained. She opened the long case. I had been wrong about the case too. I'd taken it for a shooter's case off a desk officer, clean, unscarred, the gear of someone who carried tools to look the part. It was clean, yes. But when she laid the rifle out and her hands moved over it, I understood the cleanliness the way you understand a surgeon's clean hands. Not the cleanliness of disuse, but the cleanliness of someone who tends the one tool her life and other lives depend on with a discipline bordering on reverence. The rifle was a long, heavy bolt gun, a big cartridge built for exactly this distance, and every wear mark on it was a working mark. The bluing gone silver at the bolt handle from 10,000 cycles, The stock darkened where her cheek had ridden it through more shots than I'd taken in my career. It was not a desk officer's prop. It was a master's instrument, and it had been used, hard and long and with care, for years. "Set me a wind line," she said, and we went to work. I have to tell you about the next 3 hours because they were the proof, and the proof in this niche is never the single moment. It is the methodical, patient, earned approach to the single moment, so that, when the shot finally breaks, no honest man can call it luck. She did not lie there waiting. She worked. She built a dope card for that one shot the way an engineer builds a bridge for one load. She ranged the hide 4 separate times across the afternoon as the light changed, because temperature changes air density and air density changes where the bullet goes, and she wanted the number not once but as a trend. She read the wind not as one thing but as a stack of things, the wind at the op on her face, the wind 2/3 of the way out where the dust devils spun up off the riverbed, the wind down in the boulder field where the heat shimmer leaned. 3 winds, 3 directions, 3 speeds, layered across 3,000 meters, and she solved them like a column of arithmetic, out loud, making me check her, making me a part of it. "Mirage is leaning left to right at the midpoint, call it a 4-mile boil," she'd say. "But down at the target it's running the other way off the wall, maybe 6. They partly cancel but not clean. Net push I'll hold for is right to left light. Coil, confirm the flags down by the wash." And I'd read the dust off the wash and confirm, and feel, with each confirmation, less like a doubter and more like a man being allowed to help carry something heavy and sacred. She accounted for things I had never in my life accounted for. The spin of the earth itself. At that distance, she said, the bullet's flight time was long enough that the planet turned a little under it, and she'd hold for it. The drop of the round was not a number I could fathom. The bullet would rise and fall through an arc tens of feet tall across that valley, climbing out of the muzzle and coming down out of the sky onto the hide like a thrown stone, and she had every foot of that arc carded. She ran the math on her cartridge's velocity loss over the distance, on the air pressure at our altitude, on the temperature trend as the afternoon cooled. She did it slowly. She did it twice. She did not hurry a single number because, she said once quietly, hurry is what kills the shot. The men down there have a clock. The bullet doesn't. The bullet only cares that I got the numbers right. And the whole time, this is the thing I keep coming back to, the whole time, she never once made it about herself. She never reminded us we doubted her. She never traded on the morning's flash to lord it over the op. She built her shot and taught me as she built it, and let the work be the only argument she made. The afternoon wore down. The shadows began their long climb back up the eastern wall. The killing white light of noon thinned toward the honest gold of evening, and the mirage, exactly as she'd said it would, began to lie down. The boiling air settled. The boulder field stopped swimming and started to hold still, and through the glass I could see, now, for the first time, the actual hide. The flat-topped rock, the darker base, the low, even line of stones the gun rested on, and once, just once, as the man inside shifted in the cooling air, the smallest movement of something human against the stone. "There he is," she murmured, "right where he's been all day. Good. Stay home a little longer, friend." Hale's voice came low across the net. "Recon's at the crossing. They're asking for the word, window." She studied the light. She studied the air. She studied the long valley between her muzzle and the man 3,247 meters away who was about to try to kill 6 of our people. "Windows open," she said. "Send them. Slow and steady like they've got all day. The gun has to believe it's getting an easy kill or it won't commit, and I need it to commit because I need it looking at the water and not at this ridge when I break the shot." A pause. "Tell them, when they hear my rifle, that means the threat is down. Keep moving. Don't stop, don't look back, don't bunch up. Just walk out of that valley." Hale gave the word. And 6 men I had watched for 6 days stepped out of the cover of the dry wash and started across the open crossing, into the killing ground. On the say-so of a stranger, we'd written off as a passenger. I have watched a lot of hard things through a lot of glass, but I am not sure I have ever watched anything harder than those 6 men walking out into that crossing on purpose. They came out of the wash in a loose file, the way you're taught, spaced, unhurried, weapons ready but down. 6 souls in the open with the river stones pale under their boots, and the gold evening light laying their long shadows out across the water. They knew. They had to know. They'd been told a gun was zeroed on that ground, and that the only thing between them and it was a shooter on a ridge 3,000 meters back whom none of them had ever met. And they walked out anyway, slow and steady, because Hale had told them to, and because somewhere down in them they had decided to trust the same flat, even voice we all had. I had the spotting scope on the boulder field. Marston had the rifle on it. Neither of us breathed more than we had to. "Come on," she said almost gently to the man in the hide 3,000 meters away. "There's your easy kill, 6 in the open. Take the shot you came for." For a long moment the hide held still. The recon team reached the middle of the crossing, the most exposed they would ever be, the water curling silver around their boots. My heart was going so hard I could feel it in the rock under my chest. Maybe she's wrong, some small cowardly part of me whispered. Maybe there's no gun. Maybe we sent them out for nothing. And then the hide moved. I saw it through the scope, the smallest tightening of a shape against the flat rock, a man settling into his stock, his whole body committing to the kill in front of him. He had taken the bait. He was looking at the water. He was looking at 6 men and not at the ridge, exactly as she'd said he would, and in the half-second before he fired on our people, he had given her his stillness and his attention and his back. "Guns up," I breathed. "He's on them." "I have him," she said. "And here is the thing I want you to understand, the thing that has stayed with me every day since." She did not snatch the shot. With 6 lives 1 trigger pull away from ending, with the enemy gun already settling onto our men, she did not rush. I heard her breathing slow down. I heard it go long and even and quiet, the way a sleeping man breathes, her whole body coming to rest around the rifle. She had built the shot for 3 hours. She was not going to throw it away in the last 3 seconds by hurrying. The clock was the men's. The bullet was hers. The bullet only cared that the numbers were right. She let her breath out halfway and stopped. The world went very still. The valley held its gold light. The man in the hide began to take up the slack on his own trigger, 3,247 meters away, about to kill 6 people I had watched for 6 days. She broke the shot. The rifle came back into her shoulder with a deep flat crack that slapped off the rock fork above us and rolled out down the valley in a long peal of sound. And the bullet left the muzzle and climbed out into the evening air on the arc she'd carted foot by foot, up and up across 3,000 meters of cooling valley, through 3 layered winds she'd solved like arithmetic, carried by a planet she'd held for the longest 2.5 seconds of my life, and came down out of the gold sky onto the hide like a thrown stone from heaven. I had my eye in the scope. I saw it land. I saw the man in the hide go from a thing settling onto a trigger to a thing that simply stopped utterly, all at once, the way only a body does when the thread is cut clean, and the gun he'd been about to fire never fired, and the 6 men in the open water kept walking, slow and steady, because she'd told them that when they heard her rifle the threat was down, and it was. The echo of the shot was still rolling down the valley when the silence came in behind it. That huge held silence, the whole Curzon Valley ringing with the single crack and then going quiet, the gold light on the water and 6 men walking out of a killing ground that had been waiting all day to take them, and not taking them. Not anymore. Nobody on that ridge said anything for a long moment. There was nothing to say that the silence wasn't already saying. The recon team reached the far bank. I watched them step up out of the water and into the cover of the boulders on the safe side. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 5 and 6, all 6, none of them so much as breaking stride, and I heard the recon lead's voice come up on the net, low and rough with something he was working hard to keep level. Across, all six across. Be advised we are clear of the crossing, no contact, no casualties. A pause, and then not to Hale, not to me, to a voice on the net he'd never heard before that day. Whoever made that shot, whoever you are, there were six of us out there. We're all of us going home. His voice cracked on the last of it and he let it. Thank you. She didn't answer. She had her eyes still in the rifle, watching the hide, watching the boulder field, confirming the gun was down and looking for the second threat, the tower anchor, because the job wasn't done until everyone was out, and she was already 3 moves ahead of the rest of us, the way she'd been all day. It was Hale who finally moved. I felt him come up beside us in the gold light, and I watched the commander who had stood on this ridge that morning and questioned her paperwork. I don't know you. Your paperwork says you advise, kneel down slow next to the woman who had just made the longest shot any of us had ever witnessed. And I watched his face, and his face was the face of a man rebuilding something inside himself from the ground up. That tower anchor's going to run now, she said before he could speak, still on her glass. He just watched his gun die and he doesn't know how. He'll break for the back wall any second. You'll want to put your recon team's exfil on the south route so they don't cross him on the way out. She finally lifted her eye from the rifle and looked at Hale, calm as the rock we lay on. Then they're clear. Then it's done. Hale gave the orders. The recon team took the south route. The tower anchor broke for the wall exactly as she'd said and vanished into the rocks. No longer anyone's problem. A spotter with no gun to spot for, running home to report a kill that never happened. And as the last gold went off the valley and the cool came up and our 6 men walked out toward extraction under a sky going violet, the op let out a breath it had been holding, I think, for 6 days. That was when Hale asked the question. Quiet, almost careful, the way you ask something you already half know. Who are you? She was breaking the rifle down by then, her hands moving over it in that same unhurried, reverent way, the silver-worn bolt, the darkened stock. She didn't look up right away. You read my paperwork, she said. I read liaison, Hale said. I read observe and advise. That, he nodded down the long, darkening valley at the crossing at the impossible distance. That's not on the paperwork. For a moment I thought she wasn't going to answer. Then she set the bolt down gentle in the case and looked at him, and at me, and there was nothing of pride in her face, only a kind of tired plainness. They call me Lodestar, she said. I felt the name land before my mind caught up to it. Lodestar. I'd heard it. Every shooter in the theater had heard it, the way you hear about whether in another country a call sign attached to a record, a cold-bore shot at a distance that had gone into the manuals, a reputation that traveled in the quiet professional voice that men use for the few who are genuinely, measurably the best at the hardest thing. I had heard the name Lodestar, the way I'd heard about mountains I'd never climb. I had not. In 9 years of mornings on that ridge, ever once imagined the name would arrive on a resupply bird with a clean case and a clipboard's worth of authority, and lie down beside me at dawn, and let me call her a passenger. They sent me out as a liaison, she said, and there was no edge in it, no settling of any score, just the flat truth, because that's the quiet way to put a long-gun asset into a sector without telling the whole theater where it is. The paperwork is the cover. The rifle is the job. She closed the case. I didn't correct you because the work corrects faster than the words do. You'd have heard Lodestar this morning and you'd have half believed it. You saw the shot just now, and you'll believe it the rest of your life. The shot is the only thing that was ever going to convince you, so I let the shot do the talking. Hale was quiet for a long moment. And then the commander of Op Antler, a big, careful man who trusted nothing he hadn't vetted, who'd questioned her in the shade that morning, who outranked her on every piece of paper in the theater, got slowly to his feet on that ridge in the last violet light, and he came to attention, and he raised his hand to her in a salute. It was not a casual thing. I have seen 1,000 salutes and most of them are reflex, the courtesy you pay a rank. This was not that. This was a man saluting not a rank but a person, saluting the morning's flash off the tower he hadn't believed, and the gun and the boulders he couldn't see, and the 3 hours of patient arithmetic, and the 6 men walking out of the water alive, and the long, humbling truth that the asset he'd written off had been the only thing standing between his command and 6 folded flags. He held the salute. His hand did not waver. And I got up off the rock I had owned for 9 years' worth of mornings, the rock where I had decided a stranger was a passenger, and I came to attention beside my commander, and I saluted her too. She looked at the two of us for a moment, and then she did the thing that told me, finally and completely, who she really was, not the record, not the call sign, but the person. She got to her feet, and she returned the salute crisp and proper, but she didn't let it sit there as a monument to herself. She turned and she faced down the valley, toward the south route where 6 men she had never met were walking out alive under the first stars, and she held her salute toward them, toward the men, not the shot, and she said, quiet enough that I almost missed it, "Don't salute the rifle, salute the fact that they're going home." We stood there, the 3 of us, on that ridge in the dark, saluting 6 men who would never know they'd been saluted, and the valley went black and cool around us, and the stars came out over the Curzon the way they'd come out over 1,000 valleys before it. I have thought about that day for a long time since. I think about the morning and the flash off the tower, and how close I came to never seeing it because I'd quit looking the second the valley told me what I expected. I think about minute 9, about how the truth of a thing waits past the point where you want to stop looking, and how most of us never get there, and how the few who do are the ones the rest of us owe more than we ever know. I think about how a clean case off a resupply bird can hold a master's instrument, and how a person handed a seat on your hard-won ground can turn out to be the one who's actually been watching the road. But mostly I think about the last thing she said and the direction she said it in. Don't salute the rifle. Salute the fact that they're going home. I had spent 9 years believing the ground was mine because I'd bled for it, and a stranger taught me in a single day that the ground was never the point, the people walking across it were. She never once made it about herself. Not the morning she was right and we were wrong. Not the shot that went into the manuals. Not the salute she'd earned and turned, in the giving of it, toward 6 men who'd never see her face. I learned how to see a valley that day from the best who ever did it. But the thing I carried down off that ridge, the thing I've kept, was smaller and harder and worth more. That the truest measure of the best among us is not the impossible thing they can do, but where they point the credit when they've done it. They call her Lodestar. I knew her for one day, on a ridge above a valley most people will never hear of, and I will stand for the rest of my life when I say her name.